What is up, everyone? I'm Rusty, your local laboratory maniac. I'm having a blast coming up with unique EDH decks related to Halloween. Even if you aren't a huge Halloween and spooky fan, these decks are still effective, they're powerful, they're unique, they can be played at any time. This video is about 5 monocolor decks revolving about each color and how they instill fear in the opponent. When everyone thinks Halloween or horror or scary, they think mono black. But in reality, each color can induce fear, they can be afraid, and they can be horrific. Now, comment below which color that you're afraid of to sit across from the table at Commander Night. Now, we're going to jump into the decks, but don't get too scared. This first deck is based around the color red. It actually is from the Secret Lair about to come out here in October. It's Jaws, Relentless Predator. I was so pumped to see this card. It is a unique printing in a Secret Lair, which people kind of don't like. However, they mentioned that they will print it in an in-universe version. What character do you think in Magic would fit this character, or do you think they should just make a whole new one? Let me know. One thing I found striking is that this is a red card and not a blue card. When I thought Jaws, I figured they'd go either blue or Demir, but they went red, which I think actually works, and I'll get into why it works. Now, let's go ahead and just read the card real quick. It is a 5 mana red legendary creature, Shark. It's a 5/5 as trample and haste. And whenever it deals damage to a player, a combat damage that I should say to a player, you make that many blood tokens. And then whenever a non creature artifact is sacrificed or destroyed, Jaws deals 1 damage to each opponent. So, blood in the water is what you actually want, lots of blood tokens, and then sacrificing them will whittle down your opponent. Jaws is an iconic movie. I bet you off memory, even if you haven't seen the movie, you know the song that goes with it, the music. It goes dun 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 dun, and then the shark attacks. Everyone knows it. It kind of changed how people see sharks. Now, here's the plot of it, and I won't spoil it. If you do want to go see it, check it out if you do. Like I said, it's an iconic movie. Now, a young woman is killed by a great white shark while skinny dipping near a New England tourist town of Amity Island. There's a police chief, Martin Brody. He wants to close down the beaches because someone was just killed. There's a shark in the area. But the mayor, Larry, overrules him, fearing that the loss of tourist revenue will cripple the town. Now, there was a shark specialist named Max Hopper, and the grizzled ship captain, Quint, offer to help Brody capture the killer beast, and the trio engage in an epic battle of man versus nature. It's almost like the movie version of Moby Dick, where a captain battles a large sea creature that seems to be a little smarter than you'd think they would. 3 cards from the secret layer, which is well done, by the way, are you're going to need a bigger boat, Reckless Endeavor, and Panic on Amity Island. Now, 2 of these are actually just reskins. So you're going to need a bigger boat is a 2 mana red Abrade. It's an instant. You choose one, you do 3 damage to target creature, or you destroy target artifact. Reckless Endeavor isn't a reskin. You roll 2d12s, you choose one, you do damage to each creature equal to the chosen, and then you get treasures for the other. And then Panic on Amity Island is actually a descendant to Avernus, 3 mana red enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, put 2 descent counters on this enchantment. Then each player creates X tokens, and this enchantment deals X damage to each player, where X is the number of descent counters on this enchantment. They're all really good cards, really good flavor. So, how are we building this deck? There are a bunch of ways you can go. One way I wanted to go for functionality and flavor reasons was the instant speed boosting growth effects. When Bruce attacks, it's often out of nowhere without them knowing. If your opponent sees you attacking with a 5/5, they probably won't block with their important commander or important creature. But if they see a 10/10, they just might block. We don't want them to block, of course. So we got Fist of Flame. It's a 2 mana red instant. Draw a card. Until your end of turn, target creature gains trample and gets +1/+0 for each card you've drawn this turn. And then you got Monstrous Rage. It's a 1 red instant. Target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Create a monster roll token attached to it. If you would control another role on it, put that into the graveyard. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has trample. Trample will be great in this deck, of course, because we want to have our opponents not know what they should do to block. If you do instant speed boost and trample, yeah, they might put something in front of it just in case you boost it, but they won't see the trample coming. They might just throw a 1/1 in front of it. Well, we just need to do damage. So that 1/1, even if we don't boost it, we just give it trample, we'll get 4 blood counters, and that's what we really want. So we've done a lot of damage to our opponents, making a crap ton of blood artifact tokens. So what now? Well, there are a lot of cards like the ones here on the screen that do damage whenever an artifact even enters the battlefield. You got Wefstalker Ardent. It's a 3 mana red Drix Artificer. Whenever another creature or artifact you control enters, this creature deals 1 damage to each opponent and has warp for 1 red. It's a 2/3. Then you got Hedron Detonator. It's a Goblin Artificer. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, it deals 1 damage to target opponent. Then you can tap it, sacrifice 2 artifacts, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. It's a 2/3. That's good. That's an impulse draw. Then you got Reckless Fireweaver. It's a 2 mana red human artificer. Whenever an artifact you control enters, this creature deals 1 damage to each opponent. There are a lot of moving pieces and directions you can go with this deck. One is a discard matters kind of related cards. Braylon's Sky Shark Rider is the perfect one to include because he can actually ride your Jealous Shark Bruce into victory. He's a 4 mana red legendary creature, human shaman. He partners with another shark, but we won't tell Bruce. And then whenever you discard a card, you put a +1/+1 counter on Braylon, and it deals 1 damage to each opponent. Then you can pay 1 red, target shark gains trample until end of turn. It's a 3/3. Now that trample will be seen by your opponents, but it's still pretty cool that it's like a shark tribal in mono red. Then you have artifact aristocrat style cards like Crime Novelist. It's a 3 mana red goblin bard. Whenever you sacrifice an artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on Crime Novelist and add 1 red, and it's a 1/3. Our blood essentially will pay for themselves. You pay 1 to crack a blood token, which Crime Novelist will give you 1 more mana, and then you can essentially crack all your blood tokens with that mana because they'll keep producing 1. So essentially, crack blood, all your blood for 1 mana. We will jump on our opponent's boats. Nothing's going to stop us from getting to them. Obviously, we're doing the boosting, which will get more damage, which will get more blood tokens. Then we can throw in some power matters cards into the deck, utilizing the boosting that we're doing. Gravitic Punch is something that we can actually use twice. It's a 4 mana red sorcery. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target player, and then it has Jumpstart. And then you could do something like Pain for All, which is fitting for this deck, of course, because pain is something they feel in the movie, and it's what our opponents are going to feel when facing us. It's a 3 mana red aura. Enchant creature you control. When this aura enters, enchanted creature deals damage equal to its power to any other target. Whenever enchanted creature is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to each opponent. So this is also going to make them not want to block our shark. Treasure tokens are something you really want because they add mana, obviously, but also because sacking them will do damage to the opponent. RMS Titanic makes them, but also benefits from boosting, turning our growth effects into mana ramp. It is a 4 mana red legendary artifact vehicle, has flying and trample, and when it deals combat damage to a player, sacrifice it and create that many treasure tokens. And then it's crew 3, and it's a 7/1. So at a bare minimum, if we get to hit them with this, we get 7 treasure tokens. But of course, we're going to have a lot more with our boosts. And since we are doing blood, and blood gives our shark strength in a way, we're going to be using Arterial Alchemy. It's a 3 mana red enchantment. When it ETBs, you create a blood for each opponent you can have, and then blood tokens you control are equipments in addition to their other types, and have equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has equipped 2. So this actually makes every time we make a blood token, we can equip it, makes our guy even stronger, swing in for it, make more blood, make him stronger, and just keep going, almost like a loop. And that's really the fear of red, the fear that they induce. It's a frenzy of blood and attacking. Now, Bruce, fun fact, Bruce is a fan given name for the shark from Jaws. The book and movie actually never name the shark. The cast and crew named the animatronic Bruce, and it carried on to the fan base. Now, I really want to build this deck, and I'm excited to do so. Quick mention of my Patreon. There's 4 tiers. The first one's free. It includes the Discord so we can talk directly and hopefully some gameplay. It'll be linked down below. There are paid tiers with different benefits. Check them out. I'm starting to do giveaways, and my first one goes to Locke. He is getting a foil proxy I made of Soul Ring themed around the Ring movie just in time for spooky season. Check it out if you'd like. Now let's jump into the decks. A common trope in most horror movies is cabin in the woods. You and maybe your friends go to have an adventure in the woods, maybe to grill out, to hunt, to escape from the world overall. But being in nature, surrounded by forest and green manna, you might find that there is no escape from nature. Now, I made a deck with a secret commander called Lost in the Woods. I just really like this art. Look how terrified they look. So it's a 5 mana green enchantment. Whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, reveal the top card of your library. And if it's a forest card, remove that creature from combat. Then put the revealed card on the bottom of your library. Now, you might think that this wouldn't work, but I actually own this deck in paper and it works out pretty well. Funny enough, me and my friends actually just got back from a cabin trip today. Well, at least today is the day I'm recording the video, not when it's released. We somehow survived the trip, but not all groups do. We just avoided reading Latin. We avoided going checking out sounds alone. You got to think of these things when you go on a trip. So at first, this ability seems weak. What will we do? We will actually run 50 forest, so the probability is high that one is on top. And it also makes it a very budget friendly deck. Now, our opponents won't even want to attack us, I find in my experience playing the deck, because they fear of being a wasted effort, essentially. If you're not the threat, why would they attack you? Yeah, maybe you have no blockers or something. But if it's for nothing and they rather just keep that up as a blocker, they will do that. Then we will use top deck manipulation to prevent our opponents from attacking us. We will literally make them lost in our woods, our forests. Funny enough, I literally just today, as I record this, got back from a cabin trip with my friends. There's 6 of us. We get a cabin every year. We play Magic, we play Yu-Gi-Oh, we play Lorcana, we play all board games. We go on hikes, we chill in the hot tub, all that stuff. We luckily made it out with our lives. However, not all groups of friends do that. One movie that comes to mind when going into the woods backfires is actually on Netflix. It's called The Ritual. A group of men who are close friends suffer a traumatic situation in the city. A liquor store is robbed while 2 of the friends are in there. They hide, but one is found and killed by the robbers. The other just sits there while the guy is getting killed, not helping him whatsoever. They go on a trip and eventually go through forest as a shortcut. And this trip is something that they wanted to do with their deceased friend, so they finally did it after he passed. But something in these woods is not right. Not only are they in physical danger, but that sparks their mental responses that are akin to madness. Something the forest isn't the escape that you want it to be, it's something you need to escape from. Now, in Magic the Gathering lore, green is all about the natural, about life, about strength, about survival of the fittest. However, what if you aren't the fittest of them all? What if you are a fish out of water, not a forest dweller, just a visitor? And you run into a monster you can't understand, something that is the fittest in the forest. That is the terrifying part of green. Of course, we all think we want to be more natural, but really, nature holds so many dangers for us. Ulenwald is a forest on Innistrad that has so many monsters and creatures, a foreign human would stand no chance against them. Ulvenwald Oddity is a monster that if you ran into, you'd feel a chill down your spine. Look at this thing. It's like a bear plus a moose. Look at those antlers. Those would definitely gore you if the claws and teeth didn't. It kind of reminds me of one of the antagonists and creatures in the ritual. An arched spine back with fur and antlers. A beast you can't help but fear and respect for its power. The forest is their home and you are just visiting. There are two commanders for this Lost in the Woods deck. Galanra, Caller of Wirewood, is one of them. It's a 3 mana green legendary creature, elf druid. It taps for a green, and whenever you spend this mana to cast a spell with CMC 6 or greater, draw a card. It has partner, and it's a 1/2. So it's a mana dork, which is pretty nice. Then you got Kamal, Heart of Krosa. It's an 8 mana green legendary creature, human druid. At the beginning of combat on your turn, creatures you control get +3 and +3 and gain trample to end of turn. Then you can pay 2 until end of turn. Target land you control becomes a 1/1 elemental creature with vigilance, indestructible, and haste. It's still a land, it has partner, and it's a 5/5. So since we're running so many lands, we want to have access to two commanders in the command zone. It's like having an extra card in your hand. Galandra is obviously great mana ramp and can draw you cards, which is pretty nice. Then you got Kamal. It's a way to end the game. We will hopefully be playing a bunch of lands so they can give us an army that could protect us or an army to attack. Remember, those lands do have indestructible, so they make good blockers. And, Lost in the Woods just stalls out your opponents to make their attacks useless. It does not end the game. So you do need, if you're going to pick a partner commander with this, you do need to pick one that ends the game. There are a lot of ways, even in green, to manipulate the top of our library. Sensei's Dividing Top, I'm sure you've seen. You can pay one to look at the top 3 cards of your library and then put them back in any order. Then you got Sylvan Library. It's a 2 mana green enchantment. At the beginning of your draw step, you may draw 2 additional cards. If you do, choose 2 of your cards in your hand that you drew this turn. For each of those, you pay 4 life or you put them on top. So you can put 2 lands on top, easy day. Then you got Miri's Guile. It's a 1 mana green enchantment. During your upkeep, you may look at the top 3 cards of your library and put them back in any order. So you probably look at the top 3, put any non-land on top, and then the rest hopefully are lands. So you draw the non-land for your turn, and you have lands left after your upkeep. Tutoring for the enchantment will be crucial since it is our secret commander technically. Luckily, there are a lot of options in colorless. They're mana intensive, of course, but that won't matter for us because we will have plenty of lands and mana. Ring of Three Wishes is a 5 mana artifact, comes in with 3 wish counters. You can pay 5, tap it, remove a counter from it, and then search a library for a card, put it into your hand, shuffle your library. Then you got Planar Bridge. It's a 6 mana legendary artifact. You pay, tap it, search a library for a permanent card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Since our deck is 51% lands, we will use multiple ways to play lands from the top of our library to churn through our deck. We will also use exploration effects that allow us to play multiple lands per turn. Exploration's a 1 mana green enchantment. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. And then you can play stuff like Case of the Locked Hothouse. Now, there's a lot of cards just like this. The first ability is the most important, of course. It says you may play an additional land on each of your turns. But however, on the bottom, it says you may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may play lands and cast creature and enchantment spells from the top of your library. So we will get that solved ability really quick. The solved ability requires you to have 7 or more lands. That won't be an issue for us. So hopefully we'll be playing 2, 3, 4 lands from the top of our library. One combo you can do, and there's plenty of creature tutors to get, part of this combo, is Cultivator Colossus in Abundance. Now, Cultivator Colossus is a 7 mana green plant beast, has trample, its power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control. Then, when it enters the battlefield, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. And if you do, you draw a card and repeat this process. And then, Abundance is a 4 mana green enchantment. If you would draw a card, you may instead choose land or non land card. Reveal cards from the top of your library until reveal a card of the chosen kind. Put that card into your hand and put all other cards revealed this way on the bottom of your library in any order. So, of course, you'll name land. As you use Cultivator Colossus's ability to draw, getting you another land, putting that into play, drawing again, naming land. Essentially, you will play every land in the deck. We will also use landfall abilities that benefit from this, or we will use our commander's ability to animate an army of lands and swing in for game. Imagine you're in the forest and you hear the howl of a night pack, a wolf pack. You will be scared, shaking in your boots, and so will our opponents. We have Howl of the Night Pack. It's a 7 mana green sorcery. You create a 2/2 green wolf creature token for each forest you control. There's actually a few cards that create tokens for each forest you control. Forest Matter cards will be great in our deck. And then something that is akin to your commander's ability is Sylvan Awakening. It's a 3 mana green sorcery. Until your next turn, all lands you control become 2/2 elemental creatures with reach, indestructible, and haste. They are still lands. Another way to end the game is to play Primal Order. It's a 4 mana green enchantment. During each player's upkeep, Primal Order deals 1 damage to that player for each non basic land they control. So this is like half a price of progress every turn, and it's not going to hurt you. I think we have 1 non-forest land in our deck. Then you got the Great Aurora. It is a 9 mana green sorcery. Each player shuffles all cards from his or her hand and all permanents he or she owns from his or into his or her library, then draws that many cards. Each player may put any number of land cards from his or her hand onto the battlefield. Then you exile this. We will have plenty of lands, plenty of creatures that we will shuffle in, and our opponents might get screwed because they might not get a bunch of lands, but we will get a bunch of lands. We will be ahead of our opponents with the Great Aurora out. And that is essentially the deck. I love this deck. I love the fear that the card and the art brings in Lost of the Woods. And of course, I'm going to mention it in this Halloween video. This next deck is definitely the meanest and probably the most powerful one on this list. It revolves around the backside of Xenosia Galvis, but the front side says it's a 5 mana black legendary creature, human noble warrior. When he enters, choose a creature an opponent controls. Until end of turn, creatures other than Xenos and the chosen creature get -2/-2. And when the chosen creature leaves the battlefield, you transform him. He's a 4/4. And he transforms into a legendary dragon as flying. When it transforms into it, you choose an opponent. When the chosen player loses the game, you win the game, and it's an 8/8. So the idea of this deck is to take control of your opponent's turn and make them do what you want with abilities like Emrakul. Now, Emrakul is a cosmic horror based on the writings of Lovecraft. Often, this style of horror is called Lovecraftian. So once we gain control of our opponent's turn, we do stuff to them, and I'll show you a few things we're going to do that hopefully make them lose the game. And you want to gain control of the opponent that you choose with your dragon. That way, when they lose or they inevitably scoop, you will just win the game automatically. Black is often associated with demons. However, it's just to really gain power. It's a way for the disadvantaged to get more power to become powerful. They believe in getting power no matter the price. This is because they believe in taking care of yourself and only yourself. Not a bad trait in small doses, because this is just ambition. Ambition could be good in your life, it's how you make your life better. However, what if you try to get power but end up losing yourself? Or someone calls upon you for power and you take full control of them. That is the fear that I'm kind of exploring with this deck. The loss of complete control, their ambition of the opponent kind of got them into hot water, and now we control them. They lose their selves. Like I said, Lovecraft was the influence of the Eldrazi cosmic beings. Now, Lovecraft was a writer in the 1930s. He wasn't popular when he was alive, but eventually his writings became very popular, and he was really good in terms of he did not want his writings to essentially be copyrighted. He put them in the public domain. That's why you see them literally everywhere. Disney doesn't do that. Marvel doesn't do that. But he decided to do that because he wanted to create something bigger than his own. Now, he essentially is the father of cosmic horror, a concept involving beings from outer space that humans can barely comprehend. Even just glimpsing some of their physical form can cause you to lose your mind and go crazy. Now, one reason I like these stories that he wrote is that the hero doesn't often win. He faces odds unimaginable, and plot armor cannot save him like it does in other things. Now, sometimes they do survive, but never for the better. Usually, they do go insane if they survive. Now, Emrakul the Promise End isn't the secret commander of the deck, but it's something you want to build around, just like you want to build around the other things that gain control of your opponent during their turn. There's various cards that do it. It's a 13 mana legendary creature Eldrazi. It costs one less for each card type among cards in your graveyard. And whenever you cast her, you gain control of target opponent during that player's next turn. After that turn, that player takes an extra turn as flying, trample, and protection from incense is a 13/13. Bonus points if you play the movie poster version of her that you see on the left. It's just so creepy and cool. Quick shout out to Doodle, a guy in another Discord I'm in. He actually came up with this idea and I kind of just ran with it. Now, Emrakul is a great representation of cosmic horror. Not only is she an unfathomable and mysterious being from outside our world, she is nigh unbeatable in the story. She was trapped, as often cosmic horrors are. But once released, the whole might of the Gatewatch barely could scratch her. She ends up locking herself away in the plains moon on Innistrad. She is fighting Liliana and her endless hordes of zombies in the physical world, who is powered by a near infinite black mana and the Chained Veil, and she's barely doing anything. While doing that, she's also mentally engaging Jace in a battle of a mind. They're both in like Jace's mind playing a game, and she just talks to Jace, saying something is wrong. It's almost like she was talking to herself because she wasn't answering any of Jace's real questions. She was just saying something like, something is wrong. They should welcome me. They should have life and not this whatever's going on here. So, what she ends up doing is taking control of Tamio and imprisons herself in the moon until further notice. Who knows what she will do later, what her presence in the moon will do to the plane of Innistrad. We will find out hopefully soon. There are a surprising amount of black mana and artifact cards that gain control of your opponent's turn at some point in some way. Worst Fears, a fitting name, does just this. It's an 8 mana black sorcery. You control target player during that player's next turn, exile Worst Fears. Then you got Mindslaver. The old Mindslaver combo has been something that has been in EDH for a while. You've probably seen it. It's a 6 mana legendary artifact. You pay for it, tap it, sacrifice it. You gain control of target player's next turn. A new card that works really well with Emrakul is the Dominion Bracelet. It's a 2 mana legendary artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has pay 15, exile the Dominion Bracelet. You control target opponent during their next turn. This ability costs X less to activate, where X is the creature's power. Activate only as a sorcery, and it's equipped 1. With Emrakul attached to the bracelet, it'll cost only 2 to activate the ability, which you could copy and build around that more if you'd like. Then you got Cruel Entertainment. It's a fun political card. It's a 7 mana black sorcery. Choose target player and another target player. That first player controls the second player during the second player's next turn, and the second player controls the first player during the first player's next turn. If you choose yourself and another player, cause them to lose during their turn, they'll actually never gain control of your turn because they'll be out of the game. Now, for Emrakul's ability, there are some downsides. If you're really focusing on her, you might want to put something like Ugin's Nexus. It prevents that extra turn that opponent would get. It's a 5 mana legendary artifact. If a player would begin an extra turn, that player skips that turn instead. There's actually a couple cards just like that in Magic. And then, of course, if Ugin's Nexus would be put into the graveyard from the battlefield, instead exile it and take an extra turn after this one. And returning Emrakul to the hand and recasting her, it can make it hard for your opponent to do anything to stop you. Nodic Scales is a 4 mana artifact. During each player's upkeep, return to owner's hand each creature that player controls with greater power than the number of cards in their hand. Of course, we're not going to really have 13 cards in our hand, so this will also return our Emrakul, but also slow your opponents down, hopefully. And it has a very Lovecraftian feel. I can definitely see this in some kind of cult that's worshiping a cosmic being. Okay, we gain control of our opponent's turn. What are we doing next? You can do a lot with your opponent while you control their turn. Of course, you can cast all their stuff in an inefficient manner, tap all their mana, and then attack your opponents with their creatures in a disadvantaged way. However, what if you give them something that will end the game right there? Well, there are various cards that you control that your opponent can actually activate. So you can play them during your turn, take control of your opponent during their next turn, and then use them during their turn. For example, you got Volrath's Dungeon and Lethal Vapors. Volrath's Dungeon is a 4 mana blank enchantment. Any player may pay 5 life during his or her turn to destroy Volrath's Dungeon, and then choose and discard a card. Target player chooses a card in his or her hand and puts this in top of his library, activate on his sorcery. So that first ability is what your opponents can activate. They can pay 5 life during their turn to destroy it, but hopefully we control them during their turn. And remember, you can make them pay as much life as possible until they can't pay the 5 life. So if they're stuck at 4 life, paying 5 life is something they cannot do. Keep that in mind. Then you got Lethal Vapors. Now, this one is going to be a real killer here. It's a 4 mana black enchantment. Whenever a creature comes into play, destroy it. Then you can pay 0, destroying lethal vapors. You skip your next turn. Any player may play this ability. So you have your opponent under your control. You have lethal vapors out, and then you pay 0 1,000 times, skip their next 1,000 turns. They will hopefully scoop, and that's when your commander will come into play. Your opponents, just like you, want to win to gain power, but they will face the one fear that can cripple a mono black planeswalker in any planeswalker, really, the fear of losing control of your ambitions. Emrakul will make them realize this fear, their worst fear. The philosophy of blue is an interesting one. It centers around the pursuit of knowledge, perfection, and constant self improvement through logic and intellect. But what if intellect is completely wiped away from you? All your efforts for improvement are repurposed for another person's benefit. When your will is not your own, what will you do? One card I really like that essentially turns your opponents on themselves is Beguiler of Wills. Yeah, another Innistrad related card in this video. I didn't do it on purpose, it just turned out this way. It is a 5 mana blue creature, human wizard. You tap it to gain control of target creature with power less than or equal to the number of creatures you control. So this will be another secret commander deck, of course. However, our commander will actually help us find this guy with ease, and we'll get into that. So we will always get this secret commander and be able to gain control of all your opponent's cards and then turn their efforts to your own efforts for perfection, instilling fear that you will steal their character and their creatures. Blue is known for its control magic and the ability to copy almost anything. Beguiler of Wills represents an interesting fear. Unlike Emrakul, it's not just gaining control of you. That does suck, but to me, what would suck even more is gaining control of everything around me and using that to harm me. That is essentially the fear of this deck. Now, her flavor text is interesting. It says, "Come, let me free you from the tyranny of thought." And in her art, she's like reaching out her hand. It's almost like it's inviting, as if her control is a gift. Your will and efforts aren't worth taking. Let her take control. Let her take on the burden of your choices and the choices of your loved ones. Is it tempting with her hand stretched out like that? Would you take her hand? Now, the commander of this deck is Jalira, Master of Polymorphist. It's a 4 mana blue legendary creature, human wizard. You pay 3, tap it, sacrifice another creature. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non legendary creature card. Put that card onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order, and it's a 2/2. Now, I think this is a very underrated commander, specifically for secret commander strategies in blue. If you play our deck, so all but one or two of your creatures are legendary, we can easily polymorph into Beguiler of Wills because we can just sacrifice our legendary and search our library for a non legendary, which will be, of course, Beguiler of Wills. Or you can actually focus on, you can put a second one just in case, like Blightsteel Colossus. You know Blightsteel Colossus, it's the 11/11 with Trample and Infect. But most importantly, it will get put back into the bottom of your library, or sorry, it'll get shuffled into your library if it hits the graveyard. So you will always have access to it with the polymorphist. For the deck link down below, I chose Blight Steel and obviously Beguiler of Wills as the secret commander. But instead of Blight Steel, maybe you want to do something like Guile. So you have Beguiler of Wills plus Guile. Now, Guile is a 6 mana blue elemental incarnation. It can't be blocked except by 3 or more creatures. And if a spell or ability you control would counter in a spell, instead exile that spell and you may play that card without paying its mana cost. And when this is put into the graveyard from anywhere, shuffle it into your library, and it's a 6/6. So it shuffles itself just like Blightsteel, which is cool. But you can build your deck so it focuses on countering stuff. Now, a lot of people aren't going to like that. What you could do to make it like depend, like if you have multiple play groups that like different things, you can do stuff that counters things but also does something else. For example, there's Archmage's Charm, which is a 3 mana instant. You choose one. You counter target spell, target player draws 2 cards, or gain control of target non-land permanent with that converted mana cost 1 or less. So you can play various counter spells that do other things in case you have Beguiler of Wills out. But if you get Guile out, you can use the countering. So you get to steal all their stuff, just like Beguiler of Wills, just in a different way. And of course, there's plenty of legendary creatures that counter stuff that you can focus on in the deck as well. Copying and stealing is the theme of this deck. Even with the limitation of only being legendary, here are 2 options to copy abilities. Marvin, Murderous Mimic, is a 2 mana legendary artifact creature toy. It has all activated abilities of creatures you control that don't have the same name as this creature, and it's a 2/2. Then you got Adric, Mathematical Genius. It's a 2 mana blue legendary creature, human artificer. You can pay 3, tap it, copy target activated or trigger ability you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. Then you can pay 2, sacrifice them, counter target activated or trigger ability, and then it has Doctor's Companion. It's a 1/1. So we will be copying the Beguiler of Wills or cloning the ability of Beguiler of Wills to steal even more creatures, and we're going to do it with legendary creatures, of course. Clone effects are an obvious include. We are themed around, of course, stealing things and cloning things, the fear that blue creates. But we can clone our Beguiler of Wills, but what about our legends that we're going to have? We won't want to sacrifice them to the legend rule. Well, actually, you have multiple cards that kind of get around that legend rule. For example, Sakashima the Imposter and Sakashima of 1,000 Faces both become copies, but they keep their names, avoiding the legend rule. Sakashima of 1,000 Faces kind of just essentially gets rid of all the legend rule just with its ability. Then you got the new card Chameleon, Master of Disguise. It becomes a copy of something, but is also its own name, so the legend rule won't apply. Now, what if you get your Beguiler of Wills and it dies? Your opponent has got rid of it. What now? Well, you could shuffle it back into your deck, of course. Blightsteel, if you choose him to be your second kind of non-legendary secret commander, he'll shuffle himself, but your Beguiler will not. So you can do something like Time Reversal or Days Undoing, which shuffle everyone's hand and graveyard into the deck, and then they draw 7. And there's a lot of abilities that do this, so you won't be short on that. And that is the fear of blue. Them gaining control of your mind using mind control, or they're gaining control of your loved ones and using them against you. That is the ultimate fear, I believe. And they do it with more sophistication than the Emrakul might. They almost look like they're inviting you in, like what they're doing is actually going to make you perfect, when in reality, your intelligence, your mind, your perfection is null and void. When thinking of white and what the ultimate fear for them and the fear they cause, I recall their philosophy. It's all about unity, community, honor, religion, and commitment. These aren't by their nature evil, but they, just like other colors, can go too far. What if religious zealotry and the ultimate unity lead to a hive mind like cult? That's bad enough. But what if that cult watching everyone become a hive mind, you're like a bystander watching all this take place, and you slowly become a pariah, a exile in the community. When you don't have your community, you could not survive. An individual island in a sea of unity would be the ultimate nightmare, in my opinion. You become the ultimate pariah of the community on your own to fend for yourself. The deck I chose for this is one that makes you a pariah, but it's also with a hive mind like religion. And that's Elish Norn in my mono white burn deck. This deck I actually talked about in a previous video, so I won't go into huge detail about it, but I will tell you about it. So Elish Norn is a 4 mana white legendary creature, Phyrexian Creator, has vigilance, and then when a source an opponent controls deals damage to you or a permanent you control, that source's controller loses 2 life unless they pay 1. Then you can pay 3, sacrifice 3 other creatures, exile Elish Norn, then return it to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control. Activate only as a sorcery, and it's a 3/5. Now, we will mainly be focusing on this first part, this first front side of Elish Norn, because of that burn effect. We're going to make it so our opponents do damage as much to our permanents and us as we can. We're going to force blocks. And then we're going to kind of do a pariah style effect. Pariah, and we'll get into it, of course, forces damage from us to our creatures, and we will use that in order to make our opponents drain their life. The flip side of Elishnorn is the Argent Etchings. This saga represents the teachings Elishnorn distributes among her people in the religious organization. It's a saga with 3 abilities. The first one says incubate 5 times, then transform all incubator tokens you control. Its second ability says creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain double strike until end of turn. And its third ability says destroy all other permanents except for artifacts, lands, and Phyrexians. Exile this card, then return it to the battlefield front side up. Now, we're not going to be using this one as much, but when dire straits happen, we can actually make a bunch of Phyrexian tokens and then give them double strike and boost them and then board wipe. So it's not a bad side at all. Colts, as you know, try to gain complete control of everyone, and this cult is no exception. The Phyrexians want complete control, a complete hive mind, and then they all fall under the Praetors. The Praetors are essentially the de facto leaders of each faction. Back in the day, Phyrexians were mono black with Yawgmoth at the helm, and then when they go to Mirrodin, they eventually become New Phyrexia, but since there's 5 suns in the sky, one for each mana, they influence the development of 5 different Praetors. Elish Norn was the white one, and she was the most religious, zealous one, and she worked with a couple of the other Praetors in a Phyrexian war to gain control. She produced the Argent Etchings. It's a collection of pseudo religious doctrine created and to promote the machine orthodoxy, which she kind of made up some. And there's some that are just instilled in Phyrexians based around the oil and how it comes from Yawgmoth. They inherently believe that this is perfection. And there are some quotes from this religious text. For example, here's a quote. It says, "Skin is the prison of the blessed and the stronghold of the heretic." Argent Etchings, plate 64, passage 17. Here's another one. Let go of your memories and be reborn. Argent Etchings, Plate 106, Passage 27. So you're getting rid of your flesh, your memories of who you were, and they're getting replaced with who the cult wants you to be. There are multiple cards that reference pariahs in the game. There's Pariah, which is a 3 mana white enchantment aura. It says all damage that will be dealt to you is dealt to enchanted creature instead. And then there's also Pariah's Shield. It's an equipment, it's a 5 mana artifact. All damage that would be dealt to you is dealt to equipped creature instead. Equip 3. And this kind of represents that every bad thing that happens to community, they actually just put on the pariah. They blame them, they accuse them of being a witch or what have you, depending on which culture is doing it. They essentially put all their troubles on a scapegoat pariah, and then that way they're obfuscated from any responsibility for their actions. So, what else can we do that are pariah like effects? Gideon's sacrifice represents a good aspect of what pariah means. It's a 1 mana white instant. Choose a creature or planeswalker you control. All damage that will be dealt this turn to you or permanents you control is dealt to the chosen permanent instead. So, this obviously represents Gideon taking all the damage from Liliana. And then Saving Grace is another example. It's a 2 mana white aura enchantment. It has flash, enchant creature you control, and when it enters the battlefield, all damage that will be dealt this turn to you or permanents you control is dealt to enchanted creature instead. And then enchanted creature gets +0/+3. Doing the same pariah thing, but these two are instant speed that kind of take your opponent off guard. So these are almost like fogs, and we will have creatures that we want damage dealt to. Here's two examples of that. You got Phyrexia Vindicator, which I actually played this deck the other day and got to play him. He's a 4 mana white Phyrexian Hort, has flying. If damage would be dealt to Phyrexian Vindicator, prevent that damage. When damage is prevented this way, Phyrexian Vindicator deals that much damage to any other target, and it's a 5/5. And then the quote for this, the flavor text is "Behold your inevitable defeat, Elish Norn." Elish Norn is you love to hate her. And then you got Stuffy Doll effects. It's a 5 mana artifact creature construct. Has indestructible. When it ETBs, you choose a player. When damage is dealt to it, you deal that much damage to the chosen player. And then you could tap it to ping itself, and it's a 0/1. These effects are abundant and they'll be great with pariah effects. So essentially, your opponent, anytime they do damage to you, they have to do damage to themselves essentially instead. So our commander does burn damage. Then we have like Stuffy Doll and Vindicator do burn damage. But White has this ability when they do burn damage, it's a lot of redirecting damage to your opponent. This creates a Pillow Fort style effect without your opponent knowing you're a Pillow Fort style effect. You can really catch them off guard with these. For example, you got Harsh Justice. It's a 3 mana white instant. You cast this spell only during the declare attacker step and only if you've been attacked this step. This turn, whenever an attacking creature deals combat damage to you, it deals that much damage to its controller. So that's going to be really effective if they swing at you with 20 damage from a creature. Bing, bada boom, Harsh Justice. They're also taking 20 damage. And one really cool card is Eye for an Eye. It's a 2 mana white instant. It says the next time a source of your choice would deal damage to you this turn, instead that source deals that much damage to you, and Eye for an Eye deals that much damage to that source's controller. So this is a replacement effect that replaces the damage. So for example, if your opponent attacks you with a 1/1 and you're at 1 life and your opponent's at 1 life, you actually cast Eye for an Eye, and you have them get dealt damage one, and you get dealt damage one at the same time, killing you both. I really like that card. I really like that style of effect. Now, there are a couple of combos in this deck that are pretty powerful. You got Nomad, Encore, and really any of the Encore style effects I threw in here. It's a 1 mana white soldier. You pay 0, redirect 1 damage from Nomad's Encore to a creature you control. And you can activate that anytime he's gonna take damage. So you could activate it an almost infinite amount of times. And then you got your Crackdown construct here. It's a 4 mana artifact creature construct. Whenever you activate an ability of an artifact or creature that isn't a mana ability, Crackdown construct gets +1/+1 until end of turn. It's a 2/2. So the nomads trigger that ability, and if you're doing it 1,000 times, he gains 1,000 life or 1,000 power. And then Mirren, the Moaning Well, is one example of an ability that says sacrifice a creature, gain life equal to the sacrificed creature's toughness. So Nomads triggers the Crackdown construct to get a huge amount of toughness, and then you sacrifice it for infinite life or what an infinite power, whatever you want to do. And of course, you want lure effects like Nemesis Masters and Equipment that says all creatures able to block a equipped creature do so. Then you want stuff to give indestructible because if your commander is taking 1,000 damage from many different sources, she will die. But if you have something like Shielded by Faith, which is an aura, it's a 3 mana white aura, it says enchant creature has indestructible. And whenever a creature enters the battlefield, you may attach Shielded by Faith to that creature. So it's indestructible and an aura that can move around if you need it to. And that's the fear of white. I couldn't include a video based on fear without including the Phyrexians. They literally made every plane in the multiverse afraid of them. Of course, they were beaten back. However, the ramifications of their cult like behavior, creating a hive mind, will have decades, if not centuries, of ramifications for every plane involved. Thank you so much for watching till the end of this video. It was about 5 monocolored decks and how they represent fear. I think often it's overlooked that each color can be scary, and I just wanted to demonstrate a few of the fears. Of course, this was just a few of the fears. It wasn't everything that they can do. Now, if you like this, go ahead, hit that like button, subscribe, maybe join my Patreon if you'd like, and comment down below which deck would you be afraid to face across the table.